Hey, everybody. Okay, so we have the fairies that are here with us. It's going to be a small group today, which is totally great. This was a last minute thing that we wanted to do as a foundation just because it's the end of 2020 and it's been a crazy year. And I know that there's been a lot of just the whole, oh, I saw music going. Sorry about that. I know it's been a crazy year and the whole world has gone virtual and we've put a lot of some people have put out content, but we felt like as a foundation we just really wanted to speak really into the hearts of our service families and what you guys in particular are going through in the holiday season. And marriage is obviously super important to us as a foundation. That's everything that we are about. And 2020 being as stressful as it's been, plus the holidays, and I think for most people the holidays are not really what you expected that they would be this year. And so that just adds even more stress. And so we couldn't let the year end and let the holidays happen without just doing something for you guys to invest in you. And so this is recorded and we will put this out to all of our alumni for those of you who are listening in after the fact. We know it's during the workday and some of you guys are working, some of you guys are managing lots of kiddos at home as well. So we just hope, if nothing else, this is just kind of a gift to you to encourage you, encourage your families, to introduce the team a little bit. It's been a while since we've checked in, and so we have some fun and exciting things happening. So with that, I think I'm just going to pass it to Taya really quick first, just to let her say hello and say a few things. And then we're just going to have a really great conversation. And I think what you're also going to find is you're going to get to hear a little bit from the foundation team, maybe hear a little bit of the heart behind why we do what we do and kind of what we're excited about in the next year. And so this is just for you guys, just to say hi and happy holidays. So Taya, I'm going to pass it to you just for a minute or more.
Or more, or 10, because I don't know how to talk in short bursts, right? So, Mac, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. And yeah, it is an interesting time. I think that one of the things I noticed is that people who are used to adapting, first responders, military, spouses, widows, I mean, there's a part of this that feels really familiar as far as this year of uncertainty and COVID and facing unknown risks. There's also this added, I think, uh, dynamic of what in the world is going on with politics and schemes and narratives. And it feels like there's this other thing at play, particularly against police. And I think that adds to it. And then we've got the presidential election that I think is just an undercurrent of what's happening in society, right? Where are we and where are we going? And I actually have heard more about end times than I've ever heard before. And I think that that's just a product of everybody thinking that things are just so different. There has to be an explanation. So I think Corey's right. I mean, you go into the holidays, and I remember so many times literally praying, like, God, please let things be good with my mom this year. And so I think there are those family dynamics. And then the other part of it is when we get around our families, if we're not around them all the time, we revert back to who we were as a kid. It just is like it's just a family birth order dynamic, all of that stuff. And I think that's hard for spouses. At least it was for me at times to be like, wait, is this the person? Where did my husband go? What is this? But there's a way of relating to family that is different when you're around your family and it works and it's not the same as it is in your primary home. We adjust and adapt. And I think he had to have said the same thing about me when we'd go back to Oregon. And I know my kids have too, like, Mom, what is happening? Right. I'd all of a sudden be like, sassy to a parent or something. I mean, it's like, wait, who are you? So I think that adds another layer. And then we've got this thing of like, should we be with our family? Should we not be with our family? Does grandma not want to have the traditional dinner like she normally does because she's afraid of COVID? And there seems to be people who are totally anti-mask and totally for mask, and people accusing each other of either being too paranoid or not worried enough. And right, it just seems like it's just a lot. We've got kids that are doing virtual school and face-to-face school. I just think it's a lot. So I feel like it's a real blessing for us to be able to have you, Corey, to come talk to everybody and just give some hope for the holidays in as far as like, hey, here are some tips, here are some things you can do. And it's not, we don't have to dread them. We can look forward to them. And if I know the service community, like I think I do, we already have this ability to, um, isn't it adapt, overcome, and no,
Adapt,
adapt.
improvise, and
Yes.
overcome.
Yes, I'm trying to memorize that one. Adapt, improvise, and overcome. I mean, that's just part of life. And so I think that's going to be part of this holiday. So I know that not everybody has the same faith as I do, but if you don't mind, I just want to say a very quick prayer over this, this meeting, just so that I can invite God in, whether we have all believers or not. So I'll do that. And then I'll pass it back to Corey to get into the nuts and bolts. Okay. So God, I thank you for this time together. I thank you for allowing us as a team to serve everybody who's willing to put their lives on the line for the rest of us. God, I think it's been a tremendously difficult year with PCS and changes and COVID and all the things that we just talked about that I know you heard too, God. So I'm asking for extra peace this year. I'm asking for extra calm. I'm asking for a layer of protection over all who serve and their family members. I'm asking for the feeling of relief this holiday season and peace, so that the Holy Spirit floods these homes and the temple that is their body, and that they feel something that surpasses all understanding as far as a joy over the holidays, no matter what the work schedules are, no matter what the family dynamics are. God, I ask that you are so big that we just have this light and this joy that even we can't explain. I ask all this in Jesus' name. And I thank you for this team that you've brought together at the foundation, so that we can start on this great new path with new energy to serve more people and do it better. Amen. So with that, Corey, I'm going to pass it to you after saying, which I think you asked me to say in my brief 1 minute that turned into 10. The name of the foundation has changed from Chris Kyle Fraud Foundation into Taya and Chris Kyle Foundation. That was a long time coming. It seemed a little bit difficult because I didn't necessarily feel that my name needed to be on the foundation, and the advice I was getting is that it did. And there's a part of this that says, yes, we're carrying Chris forward, and we also need the name of the person who's here doing it on there. So that's what we did. But then it was like, well, now we've got a long name, Taya and Chris Kyle Foundation, but we don't still say what the mission does. So then we added the tagline, Service Family Strong. And I'm thinking there's no acronym for this, 20 word name, but we did get one. So it's TAC-F, Taya and Chris Kyle Foundation, TAC-F, Service Family Strong. And so I think it's a great time also for us to change the name when we have this new team that I promise was divinely orchestrated, because there's no way I could have done it this well. We've got Megan, who is amazing at marketing, business, network, nonprofits. Her husband's a rock star at all things technology and data. That is not my strength. We have Angela Blair. It says Angela Zatopek. She's newly married. She's a COVID bride and did a phenomenal elopement. And she is media communications, just a phenomenal resource for us. Her network has been huge for us as far as aligning us with people that can take us to the next level. We were able to change some members of the team, some of whom were very valuable and it was very difficult to change, and some of whom we felt weren't the best fit for us. So in the end, it was like a total rebuild of the organization. We've got Kylie Towns, who was here before. She's a service wife and a bright light for all of us. So that's super cool. And then we get to officially bring on Corey Weathers as a more permanent part of our team, which is a total godsend because she's really been a backbone for all of these years anyway. And then we have Jim Word, who is not, I don't think on this call right now, but he is a pastor who I've trusted forever. And he is going to be a phenomenal resource for grant writing. And then the new things coming up, we're looking at Fort Hood taking some of our programs in, hopefully for a pilot program. And then we've got some mega churches. So we're hoping to really my hope and my actual belief is that God put us here with this team in this moment, so that with all of the energy and things that have happened so far, it was like we could use COVID to revamp. And then 2021 hits, and I feel like the doors are going to be boom, wide open for us to do a lot more of what we've been wanting to do for a long time. So that's where I am. Mac, I'm just going to throw it on you for a second. Do you have any questions about name, foundation, changes, anything?
No, not yet. I'm just sitting here to listen. I signed up for basically last minute, so we were kind of unaware of what it was going to be. My wife should be on here shortly. She may have some questions, but.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm actually just grateful to see your face and your uniform and all of that stuff. So it's it
looks like I'm the only one at work.
I know, right? I know.
Everybody else is sitting in their comfortable chairs.
I know. So I work from home, and I thought about putting on an actual work shirt, and then I thought, you know what? I'm not even gonna apologize. I'm in a hoodie, and hate is gonna hate. No, I'm just kidding. So you might be the only one at work. But anyway, yes, you are right. about that. And I want to take a special minute to just thank you for your service. I know being an officer is just, there hasn't been a time maybe that's been more confusing or dramatic or upside down, in my opinion, for police officers. So just know that we're thinking about you and praying about you and trying to figure it out maybe with you. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
confused as to why we can't be supporting all good people, but I think it's going to be a work in progress. So
Well,
thank you.
thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, Corey, now officially I am turning it over.
No, I love all of that. And Mac, really no pressure. I know that you are at work, and that's why we wanted to do this and record it. Let me turn off all of my noisemakers there. But we are recording this because we knew that it was going to be in the middle of the workday. And so if at some point you have to get back to work and need to sign off, that's okay. You don't need to feel any kind of pressure to suddenly heavily participate. So, and the same thing goes for your wife. We're just glad to see you and know that you guys are doing okay. And so obviously I should pause for just a second and also just introduce myself to anybody that's listening that maybe has not worked with me or doesn't know who I am. My name is Corey Weathers. I've worked with the foundation for, gosh, 3-4 years now. And I've worked in all of the programming, worked with the team. This is a fantastic team. And it has been so exciting and such an honor to officially join them full time. It just is the perfect fit. My heart and my passion has been for military, first responder, and veteran couples. And it's a whole long story of how I even got to work with the foundation and how that came to be. But my husband helped us a lot with MYM and some other things as well. So Mac, I think that Matt might have been part of, or maybe not for the first year of MYM, but my husband was helping out with MYM. And so some of you listening may know of him as well. But I'm just very excited to join this team for next year where we can really laser focus and really get excited about what 2021 can bring. And honestly, I think we all need some hope and we all need some movement and we need some good things to happen in 2021 in a variety of ways. And so I'm also a licensed professional counselor that works with service families. That's, where my background is, it's where my passion is. And so taking this position really just gives me the opportunity to leverage a lot of that content and a lot of that boots on the ground experience and bring that to a program level, really, so that we are making a really good quality impact. And that's what I love about working with Taya and the foundation is that that's what the foundation has always been about, is not just about numbers, not just about having a program that looks like it's doing something. It's always been very important to us that we are actually changing lives and changing marriages and changing family trees, because we know if we can change a marriage and help you guys feel a little bit more connected and feel a little bit more secure as a couple and as a family, then that affects your children. And Max, speaking of MYM, I think every cohort that we did for MYM, for those listening, is Mastering Your Marriage. And I think every cohort that we did, we had people telling stories of how some of them were on the brink of divorce and how Mastering Your Marriage is just taking that intentional focus, that intentional effort to slow down and think about your spouse, how that drastically improved their marriage and how it impacted their children too. Because even their children were saying things by the end, like, you guys are not arguing as much and you seem like connected, and the home has just been a happier place lately. And so we know that it changes the family tree, and that's just hugely fulfilling for us as a team. And so it's just really exciting to be a part of that and do that more. So I've been thinking a lot about obviously what's been going on this year, for a lot of our first responders, like Taya said, it's been an especially rough year. I think it's been a rough year for everybody for different reasons. I mean, even Angela was delaying her marriage that she waited a very long time for, and then had to have a marriage that really wasn't like what they were expecting it would be. Like, everybody has had a year that was not what we were expecting it was going to be. In fact, I picked up a magazine that I just happened to still have in the house, and it was January 2020. And the front 2 pages of it were what's on your bucket list for 2020? And I just read through that and just had to laugh because we had no idea what this year was going to look like. And I know for a lot of our first responders, it really has turned into an actually extra stressful year. And anytime I see that, I think a lot about how unique it is to have an organization that brings military and veteran also together to it's and a lot of people go why, right? Like, why are we bringing in those groups of people together? And I think that, well, obviously the service community, we understand each other a lot more than we think we do. All of our service families have chaotic schedules. Everybody has this feeling in their relationship that we can find ourselves passing like ships in the night, different shifts. My husband is currently deployed right now. And so just kind of trying to figure out time zones and communication can be hard. And so it's just a chaotic lifestyle to try to also have a marriage and also build a strong family. And so I think we all kind of have that in common. But, even for those first responders that have gone through the racial riots and just all of the politics that have happened this year, there's been a lot of, do people talk about it? Do they not? And what does that mean if we talk about it, if we don't? And where do you stand? And all this kind of mess. But really it comes down to, do we stand for human beings and families and marriages, and giving people that voice, no matter where they are, to just kind of express that there's a need there, a need for human decency and a need for kindness even. And so I think about how many of our veterans, maybe some of our veterans that were even serving in Vietnam, who know what it's like to come back and feel like the world is against them, or feel like the culture or the country doesn't understand or doesn't welcome them in such a way. And so when I think about those things, we have so much more in common and so much to offer each other. And I've definitely seen, whether it's in our empowered spouses, when we get the wives together, when we get MYM together, and we get all these three groups of people together, it's just this extra camaraderie that kind of spreads across the divide and goes, I understand. And you might be going through something that I'm not going through, but I understand and I see your need, and I'm here to say thank you. And I'm here to say how much I appreciate you and what you do. And if you need somebody to talk to, I'll get it. And that's what I love about bringing these communities together.
Hey,
So,
Corey,
yes,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to say something. That is one of the parts of the program that I think is overlooked, is the relationships that we built, not only with our wives or significant others, but with the groups of families outside of there. We still talk to them on a regular basis. We've hung out multiple times. So that's one of the most important parts of the Master Your Marriage program that we found, was relationships that we could actually find somebody that's in a similar situation. In our jobs, often it's hard to share with people that are at work with you, and you can actually have an experience where they don't know the actual details of the situation. And it's a little bit easier when you have outsiders from outside of your agency that you can actually bond with. So I appreciate that. That's a big part of the Master Your Marriage program, and we really appreciate that portion.
I'm so glad that you said that, and said that that was your experience. And you were part of the first Mastering Your Marriage, the very first one we launched. You were telling me in the chat here that it was in Waco, and it was such honestly, it was magic. It was just a beautiful experience. Baylor University helped us teach that first Mastering Your Marriage, and they have such a heart for these families as well. And so I would, not to put you on the spot, Mac, but I would love for you to share what that first cohort, that first MYM experience was like. We were all learning, we were kind of piloting out the curriculum and seeing what worked and seeing what didn't work. And I know my experience of it, just watching you guys, was just beautiful to see you guys come together. And I know one of the things that we learned as an organization was kind of solidifying the power of these three communities to come together, because your small group would have veteran, first responder, and military, if we could help it, in your small group. And so would you mind just kind of sharing a little bit of what your experience was like for MYM?
I think the beginning, it was awkward. Me and my wife were struggling, like a lot of families were. It seemed like we started off kind of slow. The face-to-face contact, the intentional communication was a little difficult to start, especially for somebody that's never done that kind of stuff. I think once we opened up, it definitely changed our marriage. Everything we do now is, oh, it looks like she's logging on, so I guess I better not say anything too bad. But the intentionality of everything was, it actually helped out tremendously. So
Well, and Christy, he's saying wonderful things about you, but we're just talking about mastering your marriage and what that experience was like for you. And I think what you're talking about, Mac, was the knee to knee. Is that what you're talking about? Where we had you guys face each other? That's always like a beautiful and yet difficult thing to watch couples do, because we really put you guys knee to knee and get you to actually look at each other and
Yes.
actually slow down and talk to each other.
Yeah, they had a series, I believe they had a series of questions that we had to answer to each other. So it looks like she's driving and on the phone at the same time. I may have to
We're
take
not
care of
gonna-
that situation later.
Oh no, and I have a huge
In the
rule.
parking lot.
Oh, you're sitting in the parking lot?
I'm in a parking lot.
Oh,
Mhm.
Well, can I
I'll be
just
driving
say,
in a second.
can I just say, I also have for a long time done the coaching sessions that have gone with our revitalization retreats. We now call it, we're changing the name in 2021 to strength training, because so many of the coaching sessions that we've done using the Strength Finder assessment has been so valuable to couples that, I mean, it really kind of took center stage of just changing their communication and their relationship. And so we will still give couples a night away to do something really amazing. But can I just say, when I do those coaching sessions, I always tell people, like, from the beginning, like, do not have these sessions while you're driving. Like, do not. And can I just say, it's only the Leos that do it every single time. It's the Leo.
I'm sitting at a desk.
I know you are, but this time it's your wife. No, but can I just say, like, the firefighters stay in their seats at their desk. You know, I've got military at their desk, you know, or people are
Okay.
sitting in their cars. It's the Leos
You know,
that are speeding down the highway trying to have a session.
So here's what we're gonna do though. Because now you're just fanning the fire that the impression is that the firefighters are lazy, right, Mac? It's like, yeah, the police officers working. Firefighters are just making dinner for each other, going to the grocery store, you know, taking a nap because they get to stay for, you know, overnight with their nice beds and nice offices. Am I right, Mac?
Yeah, they got it made.
Yeah, so you're fanning the fire, and the police are like, yeah, because I got to work actually
Yeah.
when I go to my job, right? So, no, I know, and I would say that it is such a challenge just to try to fit it in and to do the scheduling, and you probably feel and probably are much more adept at driving and managing things because you figure they've had I'm just going to give some credit here to our Leos. They've had all the defensive driving, all the chaotic driving classes, and all of the, hey, listen, while I'm driving, people are telling me that somebody is murdered or abused or somewhere else down the road. So I got to be multitasking. They even have computers where the console is like for our drive shaft. I'm like, so they're probably like, listen, this is just
Can
how
do
I
so many
roll.
things.
This is just what I
I'm
do.
driving. No,
Yeah.
and I just also have to say, I say this like tongue in cheek because I have
Yeah.
such a good time with our first responder families and joking around. And my father-in-law is also a retired Leo. And so this part of this is coming from a personal bias of how many family vacations I've had to go on with him driving. Which is like terrifying when you have infants in the back of the car, and how many arguments I've had with him. Like, you are retired. You are slow down. But no, that's tongue in cheek just because we're always giving him a hard time. But no, honestly, some of my favorite sessions. And that's what's also great about what we do with that program is that we make it convenient for people. Where you don't have to come into what might feel like an intimidating counseling office. You can do it from your squad car. And some of my favorite sessions have been first responder couples with like his like weapon like right between them. Like that was one of my favorites. I even had a couple that were sitting in the driveway. Like their kids were in the house, but the only privacy they could have was if they just sat in their car in the driveway for their session, which was so creative. And I loved that. So no, and I've had some that were deployed soldiers, right? Or like from a different country or in a different country, and we're still doing coaching sessions. So no, I appreciate it. But Christy, I'm so glad you're parked. So I'm giving you just a little bit of a hard time and ribbing you a little bit, but no.
No, that's okay.
Well, Chrissy, can I just put you on the spot? I do have content for us to talk about today, which I hope is definitely encouraging for anybody listening. But Chrissy, if I can just put you on the spot, since you joined us a little bit late, you were part of the first Mastering Your Marriage that we celebrated in Waco with Baylor. And every time I think about that one, I think about being in the courtyard, you know, outside the hotel and just having a beautiful kind of, we call it like an oath ceremony. It's kind of like a launch at the end of that weekend where we've done some really good curriculum, kind of set a foundation. And then at the end, we kind of have this little ceremony where you kind of commit to each other that you're going to work on this for the next 6 months, or at least give it your best shot, right? And so that's what I think about in that first MYM, is you guys in that courtyard, because it was beautiful. And it was just a sweet, sweet time where just seeing you guys look into each other's eyes and make this commitment. And Mac, I know you said initially that was kind of hard to sit knee to knee, you know, when you first started that weekend, but I will tell you what, by the end of that weekend, seeing you guys face each other, there was no awkwardness there. Maybe that was me, but it was a sweet moment. So Christy, do you mind if I ask you what your experience of MYM was?
I think it really just gave us a chance to focus on each other, which is something that we were really struggling with personally. And a lot of that had to do with schedules and, you know, just figuring things out with work. I had started a new job as a high school counselor instead of being elementary. And so the demands are a little bit higher than what they were. And so there were just a lot of changes we were going through. And it just really gave us a chance to just be able to kind of focus on us, which we hadn't done in a long time. And so I was very thankful for that experience, and not just for that first weekend, but for the entire year that we got to do that stuff. You know, we were able to, I know I came in and when Mac was saying be more intentional, we learned how to be more intentional with each other, and we've definitely continued that. Communication has gotten a lot better for both of us, I think. And so I was singing praises of the program long after we were done doing it. And so I hope that is something that can continue in whatever format that looks like, because it was so beneficial for both of us.
No, thank you for saying that. And the great news is that I'm losing count at this point, but I think we've done 3 or 4 cohorts for MYM now. And we definitely are going to continue that into 2021. It's just been it's a fantastic program, and marriages are just so impacted, and it's a big commitment to ask a couple to intentionally focus on each other and increase their communication and like commit that to each other for the 6 months, and to a small group of people that you're like, oh, you know, are these people going to be, you know, I got to do life with these people for 6 months. But we've just seen such a great, consistent impact in our marriages that we're serving, like you're talking about, that we're definitely going to do that in 2021. And so if at any point you guys are interested in kind of joining part of that process again, like we are really excited to say that like we found some of the best success is peer facilitators helping with those squad teams, those small groups. Like when you have another couple that's just like you, that maybe has been through MYM before, that can serve that small group, we found that has really made a big difference. So I also just kind of want to just say again, since Christy, you joined here a few minutes ago, there's no pressure. This is I think I'm kind of seeing this as a drop-in call because people are like on lunch break. So if at any point you need to drop off or something, just know it's totally okay. We're going to keep rolling because this is going to be a gift to those that can watch it later as well, since it's recorded. So I'm so glad that you guys are here. So here's what I wanted to do. You know, I was thinking a lot about this year and how tough it is. And, you know, in all of my sessions, I would say everybody has increased anxiety. Everybody is stressed out. Everybody is fatigued. And on top of jobs, you know, especially if you have a 2-income house, but on top of jobs and trying to stay on top of that and try to keep your relationship strong, you know, one of the things that kind of keeps coming up for me is how prior to this whole COVID crisis, you know, we lived in a culture where we could, and, you know, I apologize if this sounds kind of like a crude word, but I mean this in the best way. We had resources around us that we were able to kind of farm out responsibilities externally to our home in order to give us the support that we needed in our family. So, you know, if you wanted to entertainment, you go to the movie theater and be entertained. If you want dinner and you don't feel like cooking, you go to a restaurant and they serve you, right? If you need your kids to get, you know, better development in their physicality, then you enroll them into sports and you hopefully have a coach that's helping you with that, right? And then you've got teachers that are teaching your kids at school. And if you go to church, you've got a youth minister or a pastor that's doing spiritual development. Like we were in such a culture that the resources available to us, I think maybe we even took them for granted, just how much these resources really provided a level of support so that we could then focus on the job and maybe focus on whatever we had the energy to focus on. And I think all of us could agree that even prior to COVID, we probably could have done better and learned better communication and invested more time in our families, right? Even with all of those resources, because that's the number one request I get is, can we increase our communication? What can we do better? But I think that when this happened, there was the initial, oh, yay, we get to spend time with family at home. But I think for a lot of our service families, the world did not really stop for very long. If not, if other, on the other hand, like it actually like increased in stress. And Mac, I don't know what you experienced out on the streets this year, but it just was just incredible to watch in the worst way. And just on top of suddenly having all of that responsibility that we farmed out to the resources outside of our house, on top of all of that now being on our own shoulders. Like I know here at our house, like just even being your kid's friend, what became part of parenting, if they're not going to school for a period of time and you become their teacher too. And so as I've been thinking about that, I've been thinking, that's a lot of stress to have on a family. That's a lot of fatigue and a lot of exhaustion. And so the biggest questions I got initially was, how do I cope with all of this, which turned into self-care and talking about self-care. And then I think we kind of all knew like, okay, yeah, I got that. I got self-care. And now what? Like, because this isn't getting better. Now what do I do? And I heard from a lot of our police spouses, our first responders, what I call supporting spouses, those that are at home, who really had a lot of fear this year, of fear of retaliation, fear of people even in their neighborhoods knowing that they were a police family in their neighborhood, not wanting to talk about that out loud. That was a lot of angst to go through and a lot of stress and fear. And so it's just been a lot. And Mac, I don't know if that's something that you're willing to kind of share what your year has been like, even just from a high level. Perhaps if you feel comfortable, that could really give voice and encouragement to maybe somebody else that's watching or listening right now that kind of went through the same thing.
Well, I think this year's been a little bit different in two aspects. One is that in the law enforcement side, we love, I hate to say it this way, but we love to control what happens to us. So we're very good when it comes to the riots and the protests and the stuff like that. And I think where we lose it is the unknown, the not knowing where our job security is going to come, the defunding of the police, talking that's going on. I had a conversation with my oldest daughter the other day, and you're talking about not being able to kind of express that, your dad's in law enforcement, stuff like that. A couple students were carrying flags around, and she wanted to borrow the thin blue line flag and walk around the school with it. And I had a conversation with her about, I didn't think that was the best idea. And we kind of talked about the reasons and society. And it's a sad time where, you can't be proud of what your father did. And it's the times we're in. We don't tell people that. I try to keep it, it's sad that I keep it a secret from a lot of people that don't know us, that we're not in law enforcement. I never wear my uniform to basketball games or anything like that. It's just because I don't want to put my child in a situation where she's going to have to feel that kind of that stress. So, I mean, we've been blessed. I've had job security. My wife, being a school counselor, has job security. So we haven't had to deal with any of the negative aspects of losing the job, other than the talk and the rhetoric that goes on TV. But we've been pretty blessed this year. So
I think it's amazing and so encouraging that you can go through that level of stress and still vision cast the way that you did for your family, just to be able to say, this is really hard, and I can't explain all the reasons of why you can't express yourself the way that you want to at school, to be able to parent your daughter intentionally, but to also vision cast for your family of, here's where we do have blessings, here's where we do have security, or here's where we do have hope. And being able to say, the world may not understand right now, your friends may not understand right now, but that's okay, because things can change and things will get better, I believe. But I just want to say, um, how I know I don't want this to sound like patronizing towards you, but I'm really proud of you. I'm really proud of you for taking the lead in that way with your daughter and giving her the right words and explaining it to her and putting that positive spin. I know that wasn't easy and you probably didn't feel it every day, but just being able to cast vision for your family of going, yes, there's this stress over here, but there's all these other things over here that we can be grateful for. At least that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I try never to have a negative outlook on very many things. So my wife probably gets agitated with me sometimes because I don't let anything get me down for very long. So that's kind of the way I take approach in a lot of things I do.
Well, and if I can just say to you and to maybe some of the men that might be listening to this later, you've definitely, by taking that stance, become the rock of your family, and that can also add a lot of responsibility and a lot of pressure to just be that steadfast character for your family. And I have no doubt that that's what's going to help your family just kind of push forward on those really rough days where there's a lot of emotion. And so I know that's not easy too, to always have the positive attitude and carry the weight of that. But I can tell you that I can tell you from experience, having a husband that just really casts vision during tough times, what a gift that really is to your family. And so thank you for doing that for Christy. Christy, I hope I'm speaking for you okay in that. I hope that's appropriate okay for you too as well. So and I think honestly that ties into exactly what I wanted us to talk about today, because at the end of 2020, honestly, there's only so much we can talk about self-care, right? There's only so much I can, keep saying over and over again, like have a creative date night, right? Like figure out how to have a picnic on the floor. And there is room for creative ideas. And maybe we do need lists of like creative ideas so that when we run out of our ideas of our own, we have something that we can turn to. But I think the thing that's really been on my heart the most is gratitude. And before I am going to show a couple of slides, but it's not going to be death by PowerPoint. And I really do want this to be a little bit of a conversation. And I'm also going to invite the team to jump in. I'm going to call you guys out here. So make sure you're paying attention at some point. I might say, what do you think about that? Just so you're not hearing just my voice the whole time. It's not going to be death by PowerPoint, but I do want to show a couple things that have really stood out to me, especially since this fall, that has really helped us. I mean, just if I can speak for military families just for a second, there are military families that are still deploying, still PCSing. We are in the middle of PCS season right now. I know a lot of people who are moving in the middle of the holidays and a pandemic right now. I have an intern that's a military spouse that's going to be moving from Japan in the middle of all of this. Like things are still happening. Stress is still there. And there is everything else that the country is going through on top of all of that. And so I want us to talk about gratitude. But before I do that, I really want to give a caveat, because prior to this fall, gratitude to me was like this Band-Aid of a concept that it was just like, you know what, just be thankful. Like just slap something positive on like these terrible circumstances and all the uncertainty and all these things that don't make sense and that aren't getting better. And that's just creating more stress for our life. But we should just figure out a way to be thankful for something. And I think for a long time, I was really resentful at that, because I was like, wait a minute, like, this is really hard. This is really difficult stuff that we're going through. I don't think that just being grateful for something is going to fix anything. And so I want to give this caveat to maybe those that aren't like you, Mac, that can see the silver lining and all that. And which, by the way, we tend to marry our opposites. So Christy, I don't know if that's you, but I'm going to just say that's me, that I can be optimistic for a while, but when the stress really starts to build, that optimism starts to run out. We find ourselves even exhausted and trying to look for the silver lining. And so I want to speak for those who are really maybe under a lot of stress right now and struggling now in the holidays too. We can find ourselves so busy in the holidays that we kind of forget to slow down and even pay attention to our level of stress anyways. And so I just want to say that gratitude is actually a tool. It's not just this thing that we just slap a Band-Aid on and not pay attention to what we're actually really struggling with. Gratitude actually does not work unless you actually are self-aware enough to know what you're going through, to be able to state what you're going through and what you're feeling, so that then you can apply gratitude. And so I think that's why often it doesn't work for other people who think that it's just a Band-Aid and just something simple that we just kind of on the surface just state something we're grateful for. It really does take being able to, what I call, sit in the pocket of that stress and sit in the pocket of what your current needs are, in order that we can use gratitude. So I'm actually going to hopefully share some things with you that are like, that were honestly mind blowing for me that I had never seen before on gratitude, that has totally shifted my perspective and hopefully will help you guys see that it's not just a Band-Aid. It's definitely hard to apply. It's not easy, but it's life changing if we do it right. So I just want to start off by saying, if we can just a few of us, if you don't mind, not because I want us to make it like a downer, but I just want to validate. I know I've done a little bit of validating myself, but maybe just one thing that was hard for you in 2020, or if you want to make this more holiday specific, like what's one thing that's making the holidays a little bit more challenging for you? Because I think this is part of the self-awareness piece. And I'm also doing this for those spouses, those supporting spouses that are listening right now, because I hear from those supporting spouses all the time that you're so busy taking care of everybody else. You don't even know what you're going through. You're not even listening to what you're going through. And empowered spouses, we slow you down so much that it all starts coming up. So I know there's stuff going on out there that we're not paying attention to. So let's just pause and like practically do this exercise just for a second of like, where are you at? I often do the check-in with people, right? Like, what are you physically feeling? What are your thoughts and emotions lately? And I'm not going to ask everybody on here to do that today, but just like take a pause for a second. And how are you doing with going into the holidays before we put the positivity in there? What's stressful about it? Is anybody willing to share?
Stressful about the holidays.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's just that I have a lot of things that I'm always looking forward to doing. And I think if I have a little bit of downtime, I could attack XYZ. And so I have the illusion of downtime, but it's never going to be that downtime, right? Because there are going to be other things that need to be done for the holidays that I actually want to do. I love Christmas. And I think that there's also usually an emotional undercurrent for people. For me personally, losing Chris was really difficult. We had just a phenomenal Christmas our last year together. And so the Christmases since his death have been flooded with memories and what could have been, what should be. And then each year was unpredictable how I'd feel. So I sometimes go into the holidays going, I wish I could predict how it's going to feel. This is the first year though that I've put up all the Christmas decorations and actually enjoyed it without, I mean, one year I unwrapped the ornaments because I was going to try to do it with a friend of mine and I just started bawling and it made me mad, right? I don't want to be that. I want to be tougher than that. So I struggled with all those emotions. So I think for me, I struggled with wanting it to be magical and then thinking it's going to be what it's going to be. And don't do that thing where you want the magic so badly that you ruin what's in front of you. I always want to make sure I have time with my kids. And then the last thing is I do try to get in family time, which requires somebody traveling here or us traveling there. Since we don't live next to each other, I feel a lot of pressure to have everything go perfectly, which I've also done a pretty good job of just saying, yeah, it's good. Whatever happens, it happens. You know, if my kids have a relationship with my parents that is different, that's cool, right? I don't have to worry about what my mom or dad is doing or how they're interacting. They figure it out and they have a good time. So and the last thing I will say that I've loosened up on, but I've had a hard time with in the past is, you know, grandparents want to spoil the kids. And I'm like, okay, we would like some health. You know what I mean? Just a little bit. And then I'm like, you know, what does it matter? It's just, for me, it's an exercise. The holidays are an exercise of managing myself, like a lot. And in order to have it be chill and cool and magical. And so this year, I think I'm going into it hopefully a little bit better where I'm just like, whatever will be, and that'll make it the best, right? Me saying whatever will make it the best.
Well, and I don't know if this is partially what you're saying, but I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to make the holidays feel like the holidays for other people, whether it's our kids or, you know, how we handle the holidays impacts external family members. And I think sometimes we can be so focused on everybody else having a great time and it feeling like a good thing and a good experience that we fail to have a good experience ourselves. I had a session with a veteran couple yesterday where that was where they were at. Like she was frantically trying to figure out how to like make everybody have a good holidays, and she's going to miss them. She's going to miss the holidays if she doesn't herself slow down long enough to like actually enjoy, and that the holidays are for her too. Right.
So I want to add to that, Corey, because I think there's this other thing that it's, for me, it's been an unspoken thing for a long time that is a difference for men and women on the holidays. I think women, from the time we're little girls on the playground, we are expected to look out for everyone's feelings. And especially in a service marriage, if the in-laws don't get a card, it's not his fault, it's your fault, right? And if the perfectly presents aren't done, nobody's looking at him, even though it's it's their family, it's you. So all of a sudden you've got this like, did I take care of everybody? Is everything perfect? And then the husband's like, babe, just chill, like it's just the holidays. Like, don't worry about it. We got this. And you're like, no, we do. Except that your mother will hate me if I forget something that is not, or if I wasn't polite enough to think to bring a pumpkin pie that's her favorite, or you know what I'm saying? I'm exaggerating. Well, no, actually I'm not. That's literally exactly. I'm just saying there are different dynamics for each group of people, right? And I think I'm saying this in hopes that there is a woman who can relate and a man who can have more compassion, perhaps, that the woman really does actually want to relax, but there's something that we've been conditioned forever to think that we could be accused of anything. If we didn't wrap it nice enough, we didn't care enough. If we didn't, do something. And so we have to get very strong to say, I'm going to show love more than I'm going to show this is done perfectly. And if that's going to be enough. And if it's not enough, that is not on me, that is on them and how they're receiving it. So that's one thing I would say. And the other thing I would say, I just want to tell you a funny story because it goes along with what you're saying, so there was a year when Chris and I were traveling to Oregon and for Christmas. And so we had to get packages shipped or take them in the bag, what would break, what wouldn't, right? Make sure that his family was taken care of, that we had all those presents. And then of course the kids were little, but growing fast. So we had all the relatives saying, hey, what would Bella like? What would Angel like? All this and stuff. And so I was communicating, okay, I think he would like these things, but then don't tell the same list of gifts to this parent as that parent because they don't want to get the same gifts for each other. So I had done all of this. Then did we buy for the nieces and nephews and the drill, right? So I did all of this stuff. We get there to Oregon and it's Christmas Eve and it's probably like 1 p.m, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, I think like over the last, month or so, everything. And then I was like, okay, so we've got this, we've got that, we've got Santa, da, 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 da. And I went, Chris, holy shit. And he's like, what? And I'm like, I didn't get us any presents for the kids, like nothing from us. And he was like, oh shit, right? And I'm like, it's Christmas Eve. Oh my God. I'm like, are you kidding me? And so we were like calling around frantically. Thank you, Jesus. Toys R Us was still open Christmas Eve at 2 p.m. How far is it? Can we make it? Can I borrow a car? Right? They got so much stuff that year, just guilt buying and in a hurry.
Guilt buying is real.
We'll take the miniature kitchen. We'll take the tricycle. You know what I mean? We'll take the race car set.
You get a car and you get a car and you get.
It was like, just load it up and let's go before the doors close on us. And I just was laughing. I'm like, but I think that's like the sort of the fear of like, the one who feels like they're responsible. You're trying to check every single box and not forget anything. And literally I forgot my own children's presents. It's just.
Can I just say, and then I'll definitely get into like the good stuff, right? Of what we're here for today. But I mean, hopefully you guys can like relate to, sometimes it feels good to be in good company of people who get it and understand, right? But no, can I just say that like just the other night, I realized that like everything went out to the grandparents and we had forgotten one of the children. And so, yes, it was frantic. My husband from overseas, I'm like, I'm going to bed. It's your turn. Start looking on Amazon because I can't do anymore. And of course him coming back going, but does everybody really need cookies this year? Like we've spent weeks, you guys have spent weeks doing cookies for everybody and they're going to be grateful, but like, is it worth the exhaustion that you put yourself through? Right. And just kind of speaks to that point of like, what are the holidays about and what does it mean to serve and love our family members and I think that's what it comes down to is we're trying to express, I see you and I know you, right? That's what we're trying to express to our kids, to our external family members, hopefully to our spouse. And then it's this frantic, yeah, go ahead.
I just want you to touch on this and then I want to turn off my volume thing, but because when you're saying this, can you explain a little bit too? Because as I'm hearing you say cookies every year, I'm assuming it's a tradition.
I don't even know if it was. I think it's like, I can't be home for the holidays. So we're just going to try to send something tangible,
Got it.
But it does also come down to traditions, right? Because we tend to do things because that's just what we always do. But I think you had a question there.
That is basically it. I was going to say, you know, we were like pumpkin bread, right? And there was some of that frantic nature of, yeah, but every year I grew up and I remember my mom making candy with her friends, and that was our, and so I feel like this sometimes I did feel a pressure with my kids, like, well, but they should have those same traditions. And then I just realized, but my life is different than my parents' life. And so the question was, do you have any thoughts or advice on that? Or maybe it's just all part of giving ourselves grace and accepting that it's just life. I don't know.
I
Just
think
traditions.
I think it definitely is. I think it is about giving ourselves grace. And I think as service families, we have to give ourselves an extra measure of grace that sometimes our external families may not even understand, right? That we've got to give ourselves the grace to go, you know what, our life is, you know, so many of our first responder families don't even get to spend the holiday together, right? And so we have to give ourselves the extra measure of grace to go, our life is different. I know for me as a deployed spouse right now, I have to give myself an extra measure of grace and go, you know what, it's going to be what it's going to be. And if nothing else, then me and my kids are going to have a conversation on why it's just going to be what it's going to be. And we're going to find the joy in that. And it's okay that nobody understands that, or external family members might have different expectations on that. But it's, you know, all I can do is communicate in kindness. This is what it's going to have to be for me this year. And I'm asking for your grace and understanding. And if I'm a little bit quiet, it's because I can't be all things to all people, right? And so that you can either understand it or not. We can have a conversation about that later. I love you. Have a great Christmas. But we're just going to kind of circle the wagons. But going back to your tradition question, you know, I've also been thinking about a lot of this because since I came into the service lifestyle and talking with other families as well, where you redefine tradition, right? Going back to our first responders, where you can't even spend Christmas Day together or Christmas Eve together. Like you have to take a look at those inconveniences that stress out those traditions that, and let's just say, first off, traditions come from our experience growing up, and it comes from the nostalgia of what your experience was growing up, which is, by the way, why we're struggling as adults right now to go through COVID, because we had a certain way of growing up that makes sense to us. And COVID doesn't fit with what our culture of upbringing was. Like everything that we've experienced as adults is in-person experiences. And now, like, not being able to be in person, it's stressful because it's not any kind of context we've ever lived in, right? So same thing with traditions. They are kind of created by this nostalgia of what you grew up with. And it's also created by the rules of like external family members. And like, this is just what you do. Like for the Weathers family, Matt's mom makes a Christmas ham on Christmas mornings. And so my kids are now expecting Mimi's Christmas ham, and that I've got to make sure that I have that, or it doesn't feel like Christmas, right? And so there are some of those traditions that I have lovingly decided, you know, I want to learn to do that Christmas ham. But there's other times that I think when you are faced with the inconveniences, and I use that word lightly, knowing that there's a lot of major inconveniences this year, right? Whether it's we can't have Christmas Eve together because I'm on a shift, or somebody's deployed, or we can't go home because of COVID, or whatever those major inconveniences are, that we could be frustrated by that. We could be feeling depressed about that. We could be feeling all some very real, valid feelings that we, like I was saying earlier, we've got to feel them and honor those feelings, talk about them with our spouse, and be self-aware that they're there, because we can't just pretend they're not there, because you're going to be like a shaken up Coke bottle that just explodes eventually, right? So we've got to talk about those. But then I think we pause, we hit a pause button there, and we go, okay, we can't do the thing we've always done. We can't have the tradition that we've always had. And so perhaps this is a great year for us to actually look at those traditions and re-examine, number one, are they empty traditions that really never gave us joy to begin with, right? Like, and that it's okay to reevaluate that. Number two, is it a good opportunity this year to create new traditions in that void of not being able to do that thing that you've always done? Can we get together with our kids and create something new? And they will always remember that in this vacuum of void of all the things that we couldn't do, you know, we had like a big Nerf gun fight, right? Or that's what we do on Christmas Eve, and we've introduced that this year, right? Or that we have a different perspective even of of what Christmas Eve looks like, that it's a little bit more intimate, and what kind of conversations do we add that can be a new tradition that maybe we glossed over years before because it was so busy with all these big traditions of family and noise and busyness that we just didn't have the time for those intimate conversations. And we can actually use this year as a way to deepen our relationships in a new way. And so I think Mac kind of going back to like, yes, things are stressful, but what are the blessings that we do have? And how can we sit around the table and be thankful for the security that we have, and thankful for the jobs that we have? And even though it robs us of a Christmas Eve or something like that, that we can say, you know what, but we do have, tomorrow, and tomorrow is going to be our Christmas, and it's going to be everything that we're needing it to be.
One of the benefits of being in law enforcement is I like to call it, we always have an out, or military, you always have an out. If you have a tradition that you don't want to be part of, somebody has to work, or I got called in and we're not going to be able to make it. So that's one of the benefits that I always, my wife is always into the traditional thing, and we always seem to do the same thing over and over and over and over every year. And it's good to create your own tradition. So
do you guys have a favorite tradition that you guys do?
Us?
Yeah.
Oh man, there's so many of them. Either we rotate every year with my family and then go to their family. But eventually, we're not going to have the family to go to. So it's going to be a major change. This year we go to her family. Last year we went to mine. We did Thanksgiving with mine, and then Thanksgiving with hers next year. So that's one of the things. My family watches football. Her family doesn't turn on the TV. So it's the complete opposite. So, but we are constantly, it just seems like everything has to be the same as it was last year. And I think that the benefit of being in our job sometimes is that we can actually use our job as an out. I mean, I have 18 guys working the streets on Christmas Day that won't be able to, spend that with their family. So, it's a good chance for us. I think we need to look at it as a positive sometimes, where we can make our own traditions.
Let me ask this, and Chrissy, you can answer this too, because I see you've just popped on. Let me just ask, where does Christmas feel like Christmas? Like, what is it that makes Christmas feel like Christmas to you guys? Is it a certain thing that you do? Is it a smell that, you smell cinnamon and then it's Christmas? Like, what to you stands out that's like, I have to have this because this is what makes it feel like Christmas?
Well, I'm a very organized and I don't like clutter. So when I know that it's Christmas in my house, there's boxes everywhere that aren't wrapped. There's ornament boxes sitting everywhere. So that's when I know that Christmas is happening. We try to put up Christmas lights. It doesn't always happen depending on what's going on at the time. But I guess there's lots of things that we do.
So it's almost like the transition, when you feel like your home transitions into the holidays, that it's kind of that sign or symbol that it's time. And honestly, I think that, if I were to do a whole other webinar, I could do a whole webinar on just the symbolism of that as a service family, and how kind of that introduction of chaos is what turns into a change of season, and how it can actually feed into the holidays too. So here's what I think I'm going to do. I'm going to screen share and walk you guys through some really interesting things that I found out about gratitude, because I think that now that we've kind of taken a second to go, okay, things are different this year, things are hard, we may have to rethink tradition, we may have to think about how we spend the holidays and how we treat each other, that hopefully this will help. So I'm going to screen share this. It's just 2 slides. So those of you who hate PowerPoint, I promise it's not going to be a lot. But I want to kind of share with you, and I can't take credit for this because this was a leading expert that I found in gratitude. And I have to give credit to this guy. His name is Robert Emmons, who studies gratitude, because there was just so many things that I think are so important to service families that it's changed my perspective this year on gratitude. So I'm going to kind of just walk through this a little bit, but I hope to kind of share with you how I think that makes a difference for a service family specifically. Okay. So number 1, they found that gratitude, and again, we're not talking about the cheap gratitude of just a Band-Aid, just say something positive and get over it. I'm talking about genuinely taking a pause to feel what you need to feel, to know what you're going through, and then choose to leverage the tool of gratitude to actually be thoughtful about what am I thankful for that I have in front of me right now? Because I think that if we don't leverage some kind of tool, we will find ourselves kind of swimming in this pit of despair. And I think there's two kinds of people. We can tend to go downhill and find ourselves in a very negative place where we could go into the holidays feeling like this is just terrible. Or we could be that other kind of person. Mac, I would say you're this kind of person that's kind of always trying to stay up high and trying to see the positive and good. And there's pros and cons to both sides if we're not like making sure that we're either being self-aware to our own feelings and talking, especially to our spouse about that, or if we're in that pit of despair and never coming up, right? And gratitude can be that tool either way. So Robert Emmons, this expert, found that after 3 weeks of actually practicing the tool of gratitude, it actually changed a person physically, psychologically, and socially. So just first off, like they've done the research that gratitude actually changes a person and changes your state. Okay, so I before I even found this information, my kind of phrase that I used to get through COVID, it was just something that kind of went through my mind one day, and it's a cheesy poem, but it worked for me, was I kept saying to myself, the quality of my state, like I mean my mental state, my attitude, my perspective, the quality of my state is determined by the certainty that I create. In other words, when everything's uncertain and everything's all over the place and I don't know what's happening, I do have influence in creating some level of certainty and structure and something that I look forward to each day. And the more certainty I create and control in my own life and in my own heart can actually change my attitude. Because that's all we had, right? Like the whole world felt like it was just chaotic and uncertain every day. And so being able to go, what do I have control over? I have control over me. That's what I have control over. And so I think that this kind of goes with that. It's basically saying that if you leverage gratitude and you create that as a routine and structure every day for 3 weeks, your state of mind and your heart and your perspective on the world and even your relationship with other people can be drastically shifted in 3 weeks. And so for those of you who are listening that are couples who are maybe struggling right now, to me, that says in 3 weeks, if we were to just leverage gratitude in our marriage, in 3 weeks, your relationship could be in a totally different place. I really do believe that. And this is coming from somebody who thought that gratitude was just a cheesy Band-Aid, right? This is actually saying that it works. So number 2, it's a social relationship strengthening emotion. So when you leverage gratitude, you can't help but have it better your social relationships because you find yourself grateful for the person that you have in front of you. I think a lot of our serving spouses, so our first responders and service members and veterans who've served the job. I know we have a lot of dual families listening as well. But I think that when you go through really tough things and you know what it's like to actually lose people, it raises your overall level of gratitude in general because you know how important and how precious life really is. And I see that for a lot of marriages, when you have a supporting spouse back at home that hasn't gone through the things that you've gone through, or maybe hasn't gone through the loss that you've even gone through, we can feel like we're in two different places. But to me, this is where gratitude actually makes a difference in a marriage because you, as a serving spouse, can be such a gift to your marriage to be able to come home and be able to vision cast for your family the importance of life and that we have it and that we're thankful for the people that we have around us. We're thankful for the friendships that we have. We're thankful for the things that we've gotten through that didn't rip us apart or that didn't threaten our life. Like my husband has, when he came home from the first deployment, he had this carpe diem perspective on life, like live life to the fullest because it's precious and it's short, right? And I couldn't fully get to where he was because I didn't go through the things that he went through. But I guarantee you that vision casting into our family has made such a difference. And it's such a gift to encourage us as a family to be grateful for what we really have. And sometimes it just takes one person who's willing to cast vision on that. So number 3, it's an affirmation of goodness. So when we step back and take a look at our life, we can accurately find that there is goodness there. So this is for those of you who can find yourselves in that pit of despair and kind of seeing the negativity and we're feeling lonely and feeling disconnected and it's just not going to be what it needs to be. Gratitude is that tool that can bring you out. You can't be gratitude and you can't leverage gratitude and it not make a difference on your state of mind. And so if you are struggling in that place of just negativity and frustration or just exhaustion, that taking that pause to slow down and go, you know, what am I thankful for? Like, what do I have in front of me? And like Taya, you were saying that maybe it's not so much about the gifts all the time. We rush to get the gifts, but just pausing to just even have the thought of like, I'm so thankful for the kids in front of me. I'm so thankful for the few people that I'm going to have surrounding me this during the holidays. And even better, if we can express that during the holidays, what a gift that is to raise everybody's mood, to say, you know what, it's not going to be what I thought it was going to be this year, but I am so thankful for you. And here's why I'm thankful for you. And here's how you add to my life. Here's how you make my life better. I'm so thankful for the conversation that we had the other day, or that you can be honest with me and tell me what's going on in your world. Mac, to your example of your daughter, thank you for like wanting to carry that flag, and that you are proud of me, and that you are proud of what I do every day. And the difference that makes you like just stand a little taller and raise your chin, right? And just like puff that chest out a little bit and kind of face the world, because you've got a daughter that loves you and is proud of what you do every day and is willing to take the hit at school, right? And carry that flag because she's proud of you. Like being able to express both sides, that gratitude of what you mean to me, is the best gift I think that we can give to our family members, is just raising that overall state of mind. So number 4, it forces us outside of ourselves. I kind of shared that a little bit already, as far as you can't be grateful for anything without realizing, and this is going to take a second for everybody to pause and think this through a little bit, but you can't be grateful for something without stepping outside of yourself. So if you've ever been through or heard about the 12 steps of like substance abuse, Alcoholics Anonymous, that sort of thing, the very first step is recognizing that it's the denial step, right? Like, I can't do this. Every time I do this, I'm going to fail, right? It's this idea of like, I need something outside of myself, and I'm going to hit rock bottom if I don't face my own kind of inability to be the answer for all things. Right. And so that first step in substance abuse and in addiction, really, and honestly, we all have an addiction to something, whether it's sugar, right, or whether it's an actual substance, and that's a whole other topic. But that first step is being able to say, you know what, left to my own devices, left to my own strength, I will fail every single time. And so when you leverage gratitude, it forces you outside of yourself to realize I need something bigger than me, because if it's just left to me and my own strength, I will run out of that energy. I'll run out of that strength. I'll never be perfect. I'll get it wrong every time. And so gratitude makes you realize that whether you have a faith system and you look to God as that faith system, or whether you're just looking outside of yourself and go, I'm so glad that family is bigger than me. And that today I might be in a rough place, but I'm willing to fight for my marriage because my marriage is worth fighting for. And today that's that thing that's bigger than me, that's outside of myself. And I'm thankful for that. And it just kind of takes you out of your own head and out of your own anxiety, and recognizing that there is something bigger. And because there's something bigger, it gives you something to rely on, to lean on, and to be thankful for, and to kind of sit back and rest a little bit, to go, you know what, there is something bigger than me that's taking care of all of this for me. Like, I don't need to stress so much. I don't need to worry so much. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday who is struggling in their marriage right now, and they just had no hope. I don't know what else to do. I don't know what to do. Both of us are stuck. Like, we don't know what the next step is. And, you know, the fact that they reached out and said, I need help, was reaching out and saying, there's something bigger than me. I don't have any of the answers, and I don't even know if there's hope, but there's somebody that I can call. And I'm so glad that he called us at the foundation to go, I don't know who to call, but I figured you guys might have an answer, right? And being able to say there's something bigger than me, and just kind of opening your mind and being thankful that there's other people that can support you if you just share what's going on. And so we're going to give them resources and give them direction, and hopefully give them some hope that there's a next step, or 2 steps, or 3 steps still that are in front of them, that it doesn't have to be the end of the road for them. And so gratitude does that, right? But first we have to step outside of ourselves and pause long enough to go, there's something bigger than me, and I'm so thankful that there is. So hopefully that makes sense so far. I have one more slide to walk through. Does anybody have anything to say before I go on to the next slide? Any thoughts on any of that? I'm seeing no. Okay.
I do have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm really big on gratitude, and I wanted to just speak a little bit to like what you were saying about Matt's understanding of life versus yours. And I definitely gained a lot of that perspective after Chris was killed. And so I do have a different, when we lost our friends, I had a different perspective of what blessed was. Blessed was that we were alive. Blessed was that we didn't get our limbs blown, or he didn't get his limbs blown off, you know? And then after he died, okay, there is a different thing now. Now, what am I, because I'm still blessed, how am I blessed? And one of the things I found, there was a friend of mine who said, when I was very stressed about, I don't know how I'm going to make a living, I don't know how I'm going to do all this. And she said, Taya, you will always have a roof over your head and food on your table, because even if it's not a roof you own or rent, there are people who love you, who will give you the roof over your head and the food on your table. And I realized that in that, it still is a consistent prayer we have in our family. We always thank God for the roof over our head and the food on our table. And I think for me, it boils down, like, there's just always something to be grateful for. And even if we're worried about losing our job and our home, the fact is we have people who love us, and we will always have a roof over our head and food on our table. So for me, gratitude becomes a lot easier when I start thinking in terms of just the basics, just that. Everything else is huge too, right? The kids in front of you, the fact that we're alive today to be together, even if we aren't tomorrow, right? Today we are.
Well, and can I just say that I think, I don't have any proof of this. It's just, I think something I've observed over time, that the more, I don't want to say the more suffering we have in our lives, but there's something about having and going through suffering in our lives that equally brings in more gratitude, right? And so I think we tend to, I'll just speak for the Protestant faith. Sometimes the Protestant faith can be like, you know what, like the temptation in the Protestant faith is to say that we should not have struggle, and that God is not going to introduce struggle, right? And that we want to live as stress-free of life as possible. And we all know in the service lifestyle by now that life has more to do with struggle than anything else. And there's something about going through suffering that not only builds our character, but I don't know if we could appreciate gratitude without also having suffering that mirrors that. Right. And so it's because we've gone through suffering that we see the depth and the healing that gratitude actually brings, that it's not just a Band-Aid. And so I think that it allows us, when we go through difficulty, to know, okay, I've been through this before, and I'm so thankful that gratitude is actually there, because otherwise, where would we be? Does that make any sense? I know that makes sense to you, Taya, for sure. Okay. All right. So I want to share this one other thing, which is really, for me, the mind-blowing part here. Okay. So let me go to this, because this is a big deal when it comes to our service culture. And if you guys take nothing else away, this is huge on how stress impacts us and what we can take into the holidays. Is that this is, again, Robert Emmons research. I don't want to take credit for this. But first of all, gratitude allows us to be in the present and celebrate the present. So he basically said that when we think about positive emotions, think like happiness, right? Happiness versus joy. Most people would say opening presents on Christmas morning is happy, right? But he says that those positive emotions wear off quickly, which is why, like, I don't know about you, but when my kids especially were younger, I'm crossing my fingers this year, but as soon as the presents were open, everybody starts bickering. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Where's the gratitude, right? And it's because happiness can be a little fleeting. And that's okay. Positive emotions like that can't last forever, but gratitude appreciates the value of something. It's the reason why that year with my kids, I was like, we were happy. And then where's the gratitude? Gratitude's supposed to be lasting, because now it's not just, I'm happy that I got this video game that I wanted and now it's done and over and it's old news. Gratitude is, thank you for knowing me so well that you valued the fact that I wanted this video game, and you see me and know me. And now we have a whole different level of gratitude and a different feeling that allows us to be very present, and it lasts longer, right? So knowing the difference between just happiness, they're both valuable, right? We're not saying they're not both valuable, but happiness ends faster. Gratitude lasts longer. So not only do we stay in the present, but if we want that joy, and if we're looking for joy in our life and joy is missing in your life right now, we can't just say, we can't plug and play happiness. I think it has to include gratitude instead, because that's what's going to last. So I thought that was a big deal. Here's another one though. Gratitude blocks toxic negative emotions. This is so huge, especially for our supporting spouses that are listening right now, because the two biggest issues for supporting spouses right now, and has been for the last several years, is, and these are topics that they're not really going to talk about out loud, is identity and purpose, feeling like they know what they're good at and feel like they can do, yes, a lot of us are at home raising kids, and that's something that we find very valuable, but there's a lot of spouses out there that are also trying to figure out, what else am I good at? And so that identity and purpose. But the second issue is resentment. And a lot of that is just really coming from exhaustion, of kind of carrying the weight of everybody on their shoulders and doing everything for all people. And I know from a lot of military spouses, I hear all the time, like, my spouse gets to go and have these adventures, going to these different countries, and the view never changes for them. And just over the years, being asked to do so much leads to a place of resentment for a lot of our spouses. And so that's a big deal, something that they're really struggling with. And so this is huge right here. This is really, really big for those supporting spouses that are listening right now. And everybody, though, that you cannot hold gratitude and resentment at the same time. So if you are struggling with resentment right now in your relationship, I know a lot of our first responders, I think military too, will find themselves over time in exhaustion. And when the newness of the job wears off, you find yourself in a very cynical place. I think for a lot of our first responders this year, I wouldn't blame them at all for having a strong level of cynicism towards the job and towards what they really wanted their job to be about, and then what they felt this year. If you're struggling with resentment in your marriage or towards the job, you cannot hold gratitude and resentment at the same time. So basically that means if you don't want to be resentful anymore, and if you don't want to be in that negative place, that if you leverage gratitude, you actually can't have both of those feelings at the same time. So what would happen if you actually in your marriage expressed more gratitude in your marriage, instead of entertaining the thoughts of resentfulness or frustration or negativity, or you're just not doing what I wish you would, or you're not parenting the kids the way that I want you to, or I'm so frustrated at the job because it's taking you away from this or that. Like being able to switch, like we were saying with you, Mac, earlier, just to be able to switch that and go, okay, instead of entertaining those thoughts, instead, I'm actually going to practice going, I'm so thankful that we have a roof over our heads. I'm so thankful that you have a job that is meaningful to you, that brings purpose and fulfillment, that it enables me to stay home with the kids, or whatever those other thoughts are that goes, you know what? I can be grateful for this and look for the good in it. It doesn't mean, again, that we don't do something with those frustrated feelings. We can't just bottle them up. You've got to process them, maybe take them to somebody professionally to kind of work through them. We're not ignoring them, but we can still use the tool of gratitude to help. Number 3, grateful people are more stress resistant. That's huge, because you guys know, if you know me, you know that I hate the word resilient, because resilient means, if you look it up, it means to bounce back. And I don't want to bounce back to what I was. I'd rather bounce forward. And I don't want to be the same person I was before, because I was struggling before. And now I want to grow. I want to be in a much better place. And so I love the fact that they use stress resistant. So they basically found that the more grateful you are and the more you exercise gratitude in your life, it actually helps you recover from stress faster. It actually helps you with adversity. And for those who have gone through trauma, whether it's from your childhood or on the job, they have basically found that you will recover from trauma faster if you bring gratitude as a tool into your life. So those of you who are struggling from PTSD or flashbacks, or you're struggling to get over something that's happened in your job, I don't think you'll ever get over something, but I think that you can move through it and you can grow through it by adding gratitude more in your life. Actually will help you recover faster. And I think that this is huge for our service community. I can't even stress, like, if they've researched it and backed it up, that's huge, because as a counselor from a clinical perspective, where we're trying to teach you how to cope through it and maybe learn some strategies, to me, to be able to say, hey, if we actually focus on, yes, the tough stuff, but also focus on what we're grateful for and how you were able to live through that moment, or that you can celebrate the relationship even though you lost it, that can actually help you move through and recover faster, is huge, if we can actually try it and believe that it's actually something that's going to help. And the last one is that grateful people have a higher sense of self-worth. I know that we have a lot of people who struggle with confidence, who struggle with insecurity. Maybe you don't feel like you have a lot of confidence in your marriage right now. That gratitude can actually give you a sense that someone else, maybe that higher power, maybe the organization, the foundation that's believing in you right now, that believes that your marriage can succeed, and leveraging that gratitude, that there's somebody that's looking out for you, that we see you, that you have a friend or a neighbor that's there for you when you need them, that there's other people that see value in you, that believe that you are somebody worth fighting for, that believe that that we see the job that you're doing, and we know that, you know, some of you are having to hide that job from your community, and that you don't have to hide it from us. You don't have to hide it from those that believe in you, that know you, that understand you, and that you can be proud to wear that badge, that you can be proud to wear that uniform. And hopefully you can see that and see our love for you. So I'm going to come back to you and stop screen sharing for just a second. But I just want to say, I know, and this is something that's hard for me to even consider applying to my life, simply because it's not something that was something I was used to. I'm a kind of a naturally positive person, I think, for the most part. And so I have not been exercising gratitude the way that I probably should be. And so this is equally a challenge to me going into the holidays of them not going to be what I thought they were going to be. And so how do I teach my kids and model this and practice it and test it? Like, I wonder what would happen is if we as service families actually tested this through the holidays and then report back and say, you know, what happened after 3 weeks of just being grateful and expressing that in your marriage each day. I have a feeling it would just drastically change our experience. And I think, honestly, Mac, that was part of MYM. I think that once a month when squads were coming together and when they were thankful for that experience, it made it a little bit easier to kind of just, we knew that there was a squad looking out for you. We knew that there was a team that was there to support you if there was something that went wrong. And so that gratitude, I have a feeling, is a huge part of the equation of mastering your marriage, at least from the outside. And as a facilitator, I would say that that's a huge part of it. Is there something bigger than yourself that's there to serve your marriage and your relationship? So I'm just going to pause. We'll kind of go just for a few more minutes longer, just to kind of talk as a group. I would love to know kind of, what are your thoughts on this? Is this kind of like too hard to think about? Is it something you're already practicing in your life? Is it like a challenge? Is it, can you see, or maybe have you seen it happen before where you leveraged it and you were thankful for that? Like, because I know it's a little bit of a struggle for me to even teach it and say, I got to apply this to my life a little bit better. But I'm just curious what other people's thoughts are before we close up for today.
I can start it. I mean, gratitude truly has been a saving grace for me. And I couldn't agree more with all of the things you're saying, because there really is always something to be grateful for. And even if it's, I'm grateful that I'm learning how to be a different person or a better person. Like we talked about, the roof over your head, the food to eat, there's always something. And with our spouses, there's something about that spouse that attracted you in the first place. And there's something that you've learned or you've improved about yourself. And I think that, especially looking at your spouse, like you said, and remembering the things you're grateful for, takes the focus off the hard things about the job, like you're saying, and it puts it right on the partner, which is, that's the important thing. You know, the job's going to be gone one day, the partner's going to be there. And so expressing that is important. Expressing it to each other is huge, huge. I mean, being able to say, I'm so grateful you're this, or I'm so grateful you're that, or you bring this to my life. It's just something that we can assume the other person knows, especially if we've communicated it once or twice, right? But I love your idea of the 3 weeks and expressing, I don't know how you would arrange it exactly, but I think it's a super cool challenge to, even if it was to write down 3 things you're grateful about your spouse every day, something like that, whatever it is, the life you have together, however, it would be nice to have it in writing to refer back to too. But yeah, I think it's everything. And I think it's a brilliant thing you did, you chose to talk about, because I think it will carry people through the holidays.
Well, I just want to say, just as a kind of an idea to kind of practically put out there, I know, and I think anybody can do this regardless of if your spouse isn't deployed. But one of the things that Matt and I are trying to do, you know, when we go into a deployment, we always try to go, all right, what's our individual goals and what's our couple goals? And I think we should be doing this more intentionally, even when we're together. But one of the things that we wanted to work on is, I think it's really easy when you're kind of passing like ships in the night and you're having to parent, make all these decisions, and you're kind of living very shoulder to shoulder, that's why Mac, that knee to knee is so hard, because we get so used to being shoulder to shoulder. We just fail, I think, sometimes to just like look at each other face to face. We're like, oh, hey, you. Like, I didn't see you there because I've been working so hard shoulder to shoulder. But one of the things that we were trying to work on this time was, all right, we tend to check in with each other when we're just home and around each other, and it's not high quality conversation. And so one of the things we wanted to work on during the deployment is our communication, but thoughtful, intentional communication. So we're using the Day One Journal app to write to each other. So we were logged into the same account, but every day we just kind of write to each other, and it slows us down long enough to be thoughtful. And I just want to say to maybe somebody out there who just feels like you've been married for a really long time and you're kind of stuck, and maybe the fire's gone out just a little bit. It's really scary to enter into that space and go, can I bring it back? Can I bring the spark back? Or are we past that? Right. And I really do believe that it's really just because we're just kind of, like I said, passing like ships in the night, that just go back and look through those old pictures of when you were together in the beginning, go back and read some of those old letters, and just slow yourself down long enough to just kind of, I know meditate kind of scares people. So just be thoughtful about your relationship and that other person, and what you fell in love with in the first place, or what you like about the person, what you're grateful for that person. And then just take a thoughtful moment to write that to your spouse. And so that's one of the things that we're slowing ourselves down every day to just journal, not just what we're doing each day, but like what we're thinking about each other each day. And the great thing about that journal is at the end of the deployment, you can actually order it as a bound book, and it will, and you'll be able to have that as these like love letters to each other that you can pass down. And I honestly believe you can do that as a couple, even when you're living in the same house. It doesn't have to be through a deployment. So if you're looking for like a practical way to be able to communicate that and express that, that's just one kind of practical thing that we're doing. But before we close up, is there anybody else that any piece of this you're kind of walking away with kind of just a little bit of a something that you're going to keep in mind? It doesn't have to be all the things, because I said a lot today, but maybe one thing that you're walking away with. I'm actually going to go to Kylie because she's in the middle of my screen. So Kylie.
Yes, I could tell you a long story about everything that I've been walking through this year, but it's all kind of led up to this season. And gratitude for me has kind of been life-changing over the past couple of weeks. So I don't know if it's been 3 specifically, but I'm personally, as a wife, as a mom, in a really different place now than I was if you would have talked to me at the end of October, the 1st of November. So I guess what I could speak to, that for me it is life-changing, and my testimony, it's changed it greatly. And I am really grateful for that. So, and then also, one thing I guess I could say that I did take away from today was the whole traditions thing, because for me, what I've been struggling with in the holidays is we do family and we do it really big. And this year it's just going to be me and my little core family. We'll see other family, but it's just going to be different. And so really taking the time to sit with the fact that I love my core family and Christmas is all about my core family, but no, this year it really is. And so I don't know why that was so different in my brain, because if you asked me for their whole lives, I'd be like, oh, Christmas is about me and my children and my family and my husband and this, that, and the other. But really, it's about going here and going there and doing this and doing that. And that's not what it is this year. We're sitting and watching movies together, and we're, making a lot of Rice Krispie treats together. And so all of these
to your
things that
house
I claimed are suddenly actually what I'm living. And so it's just been a bit of a change for me. So I'm just going to take that away and think about what our traditions are, and, what is very helpful and what's not.
I love that. It's a great time to filter and sift some things, right? Okay, maybe one more person share with me maybe something that you're walking away with, or something that you're grateful for. That'd be a great way to end too.
So I don't know if you can hear me or not, Corey.
Yes.
I'm back at work, so I had to put the mask back on. No, and I didn't get to talk very much earlier, and I may have lost you guys here and there just because of having to go back and forth in between the buildings. So I apologize. I love the idea of just making sure that you're focusing on gratitude, because there are so many things that we are thankful for, and being able to voice those out loud is very important. So say, Mac talked about discussing that with one of our daughters. Both of them really have wanted to sport their Blue Line gear, and that's something that's on their Christmas list, and that was one of their ways of showing how grateful they are for him and being able to show that. And so, finding a way for them to be able to share that and express it is going to be very important, but we want to make sure that he understands how grateful we are.
So beautiful, and such a hard year. And it's a hard year for a lot of our first responders that feel that way, right? And I just want to thank you, Christy, for being an amazing mom that cares about that and sees your husband, that sees him as valuable and sees him as such a hard worker and somebody that is worthy of praise. We've talked about various points of the programming with the foundation that, there are times to praise is important for your marriage, publicly and privately, but we need to have both of them, right? And there's times to praise our spouse in private. And so sometimes we need to work more or work better at doing that more often, just one-on-one and that face-to-face time with our spouse. But there's also something beautiful and something empowering and uplifting and charging about praising your spouse in public. And the fact that you would share that and just say thank you to your husband for what he does, and to say how valuable he is to you and to your daughters in public, I know makes a huge difference for you, Mac, right? And so, and I hope those that listen to this recorded afterwards, that you'll walk away and maybe think about doing that for your spouse, whether it's your serving spouse or whether it's your supporting spouse back at home, both sides. Again, I really do believe the holidays are more about, can you share with those around you that they are seen and known, and just saying how grateful you are for how hard they work to keep your family going and keeping your marriage strong is the best gift you can give somebody. And I'll just kind of close with this. Something that my husband said, especially with this journaling that we're trying to do back and forth, where it's hard to exchange gifts or whatever. He said, the best gift that you can give someone, especially your spouse, is thoughtful words of affirmation and affection. It is honestly the best gift that you could give your spouse and your kids too, is just, it's not, yes, gifts are fun. And yes, traditions can be fun and also exhausting, but just being able to say, I see you, I see the struggle you've gone through, I see how hard you work, and I'm so grateful for what you do for us every day, speaks volumes. So thank you guys for joining us today, for being vulnerable and kind of sharing your just testimony of just the program and what it meant to you. We hope to bring you back into some of the other programming that we have in 2021 and for being part of our family. And I think I'm going to pass it just to Taya, just to kind of close out our time together.
That's really nice of you, Corey. I can't add anything that you haven't already said. It's just, I'm so grateful that we have this team. I'm so grateful that we have our awesome service couple, I'm pronouncing it correctly, Fairies, is that right? On the call with us. Y'all, if you hadn't shown up, it would have been a totally different situation for us, and we could have recorded something, but it would have been dramatically different than having your firsthand experience and knowledge. So thank you for taking the time, because as Corey said in the beginning, we knew it would be tough in the middle of the day, but to be able to have this recorded for other couples, I hope you know that what you talked about and shared today is going to be a gift to them for sure. It's definitely been a gift to our team. It's been a gift to me to just have that openness that you share. It's not common for people to be able to do that. And I think you showed great bravery and courage just in joining the foundation programming in the first place, to give it your all and truly make a difference in your marriage. Showed great bravery and courage to show up today and share it with other people who need it, again, is just so special. So thank you guys for being here. And thank you, Corey, for leading another masterful session that I think I speak for all of us. Kind of, it warms my heart and inspires me, and it makes me feel like people do, see and care about each other. And we can be far apart in distance, but we're still connecting and loving on each other, which is super cool. So that's all I have. Gratitude, actually. That's all I have is gratitude. So thank you.
Good way to end. Thank you guys so much for today and for your time. Again, we'll make this recording available for other people to watch later, and hopefully it is a blessing to you guys. Happy holidays. Stay safe, stay warm. We'd love to hear some of the traditions that you guys come up with. Maybe if they're new and different, we'd love to hear that. Put it on any of the Facebook pages that we have, or just send us an email. Let us know how you're doing. Respond to maybe any of our TAC F emails. Again, we have rebranded our name to the Taya and Chris Kyle Taya and Chris Kyle. I'm still trying to switch to Taya and Chris Kyle Foundation. And so be on the lookout for that. And the amazing new logo looks so much like it did before, but I just think it's even better. And so if you see that, just know it's still us. And we're so excited for 2021. So you guys have a great day. Stay safe, Christy, there at the school. And for you, Mac, as well, as you go through the rest of your day. And we'll see you guys soon. Bye, guys.
Bye.